This is The Big Breakdown, a long look back at some of the biggest stories we're covering for you at the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today. This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Brueski, Stacey Cole, and Todd Michaels.
We're going to keep talking about this because it just keeps getting worse. This isn't about left or right. It's about power and psychology. There's that letter, Jamie Raskin's letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi that come out. It doesn't read like politics. It reads like history repeating itself. A federal sex trafficking investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirators. Transferred, silenced, and declared dead with a memo. 50 women, 20 named perpetrators, $1.5 billion in flagged transactions by the banks going, you might want to look into this. This looks a little sus. And suddenly it all just ends. That's the process that the Epstein investigation has gone down, and it all ended this summer. To help us understand how something like this all takes place, how power, fear, and self-preservation can twist the mission of justice itself. We're joined by someone who knows the world from the inside. Dreeke, retired FBI special agent, former chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program. Because if this was just a bureaucratic blunder, it wouldn't feel this coordinated. So today we're going to go beneath the headlines into the psychology of cover-ups, the culture of silence, and the behavioral patterns of people who choose power over principle. Robin, welcome as always. It seems this is our topic as of the last many weeks every time we talk, but there's so much to dig into here. When you hear that an active federal sex trafficking investigation started in New York. Then the DOJ said, we're going to take it up for you. We're going to keep this going. And then suddenly, nothing. Shut it down after being transferred to D.C. What's your first instinct as someone who's worked inside the Bureau? What's going on?
It's a great first question to ask. Like, what's my first impression? What did I first do when even prepping for today? And in all these situations, because I intimately know the government bureaucracy, I intimately know the Bureau and how we do things. And it is filled with very righteous people in the sense of I always every day went to work to do the righteous thing for the country. You know, it was always about protecting American citizens, national security of the United States, our allies, and our friends and family. Everyone around me at my level was of the same ilk and the same motivations and came in for the same reasons. And so my first impression always is, all right, what would compel someone to do this? What would be the real rationale, the bureaucracy and everything behind this? And so the first thing I did on hearing all this again was, all right, so let me do a deep dive. You know, I did a deep dive on the research. Let me look at all the cases we actually do. What's actually the priorities? What are the goals? What are the stats we actually track? What funds the government? What funds the FBI from different investigations? So I can get an understanding as what would compel someone at any level to not focus on the Epstein stuff, and what else are they doing if they're not focusing on that? So that's the first thing I did is I do a deep dive to understand what's going on behind the scenes to get that deep empathy and context from a granular level, from an actual operators and lower level executives piece of pie. And so that was pretty revealing when I did that, but it doesn't excuse or help you understand because I really wish I could unravel this entire thing to say exactly what's going on, because there's every time I come up with here's what would make these things happen in my world when I was an investigator, it falls apart when you look at it at the bigger picture, because like this last letter that's sent to Bondi is like, all right, that's another what questions like, why aren't we doing more? And because at the granular level, down at the case agent level, there's a lot of reasons why it wouldn't have been followed earlier by a case agent to investigation. That is, when you have, I'll give you an example. So from my career, especially when I was working at FBI headquarters, or even as a case agent, you have a stack of cases of righteous work to do, more than you can ever do in a day or year or career. I mean, when I closed my career out, the first thing you start doing is transferring cases that are old cases that you never had time to work on because of priorities, and reprioritizing that stack every single day. As FBI headquarters, we had, as my assistant director in charge of it would always say, you have 3 stacks, and you reshuffle these 3 stacks every day. The stack of stuff you actually have to get done. The stack of stuff you have to get done or you get fired if not. The stack of stuff you got to get done or you're going to jail if not. Which stack do you choose? You got to go for the immediate stack. You know, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and every day, what happens is someone on high comes down and says, reshuffle that stack because of this priority, because of this thing, because the Secretary of State says this, because the Attorney General says this, because we have a new stat or measure we have to track in order to get funding, because Congress wants to see us do this. In order for Congress to see us do this, to get our money, we have to do this. And each one of those cases on my stack are very, very important righteous cases, but I still have to shuffle them because there's only one me and all this. That happens in organizations, that happens in businesses, that happens in government, that happens in the FBI. And so with that long explanation, I looked at the types of cases, these task forces, because the Epstein case was handled most likely off of a task force in both Florida as well as New York. And those task forces have mandates on prioritizing the immense volume that comes in. I mean, I have all the stats and all the numbers. I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of cases and leads that come in on trafficking, especially when it comes to minors and pedophilia and all the horrendous things that go around it. I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of leads a year. Hundreds of cases a year being prosecuted. Each one of these cases requires immense amount of resources, manpower, surveillance, FISAs, subpoenas, searches, interviews. All these things require bandwidth. Now, so here's where I think they're able to try to hide, and I'll say hide because I do think when we see letters from Congress, like the congressman that put this forward, who was it? Raskin put forward,
Jimmy Raskin.
There should be some transparency. When you're seeking transparency from Congress, you should be able to have transparency. But here's where I'm guessing from my background and understanding of what they're able to rationalize away on the Epstein stuff is, because when I did the research, the cases they tend to probably most likely, because this wasn't a violation I worked, so I'm looking hindsight, but I know the Bureau because I was Bureau for 22 years. They're prioritizing the cases where there's a very direct threat of violence against children and those being trafficked. So they're going to prioritize those that there's violence, like imminent violence. Then they're also part of that prioritization. There's going to be drug trafficking. There's going to be RICO charges. There's going to be organized crime charges. And so there's a lot of racketeering kind of stuff going on at the lower levels. And the threat against the children themselves is what they're going to higher prioritize. And it's not, I mean, is that not righteous work too? Yeah. And so see that, and herein lies the rub. So, when you have a case agent or a supervisor or the field office, they have this stack in front of them. Now, say they're looking at the Epstein case, and the Epstein case has very righteous work in here for all the horrendous things that are going on. And then all of a sudden you have the Attorney General office, the Assistant U.S. Attorney, because they're actually ones over in DOJ prosecuting these cases, saying, hey, I know this is an important case. I know the Epstein case is important, but what do you got right now that's really hot? Because we need these numbers right now to justify our funding. What children are being threatened with violence right now? And then you can easily pick up this, and this, and now you get distracted with this. And it's not that they can't say they're not doing righteous work. It just got sidelined over here. So that's one way in which I believe they're able to hide the fact that this. And now when it comes to the conspiracy, again, I'm not a big conspiracy guy, because if there was a group, a cabal of people that got together and says, we shouldn't do this, and they wring their hands, we got to hide and protect each other. With all the people that have been let go and fired between DOJ and FBI, you'd have a lot of loose lips, sinking the ship of what's been going on. But you're not seeing that yet. But people are saying it's there, it must be there, it has to be there. Here's the types of conversations and ways in which I've seen or could potentially see this happening. It's kind of like what we just said. You have someone at the super high level that's an appointee. Because remember, people that are hired inside organizations like the FBI, we're not appointed. We apply, we work hard, we wanted to serve our country and serve the American people for a very long time. It took me, I didn't get into the FBI until I was 29 years old. And it was a year-long process after coming out of the Marine Corps. So we're talking service. Everyone around me, same thing. And so these are the people that care very deeply about doing the righteous work. Now, when you start highs up, whether it's the Attorney General, Director of the FBI, all these high-level people, they're the ones that are potentially going to be much more aware of taking down government institutions, people that make a lot of money, political appointees, academic institutions, Epstein's network, that's the area up there. And so here's the conjecture that could happen without actually having conversations that can be incriminating. And that is, it's not that they're saying, hey, we got to hide this, we got to protect this person, we got to not look here. It's easy because of the way I just laid out the priorities of protecting children, violence against them. They can easily say, hey, we really need to focus on this. And it's right work. And what happens is in any organization, especially the bureau or a government organization, when the boss that is in charge of your reputation, in charge of your promotion, in charge of your feeling of safety, of your paycheck, says this is the priority, and it's a righteous priority. It's not that they're saying don't investigate this. It's not saying ignore this. They're saying this is important today. We'll get to that later, but this is what the hot topic is today. And it shifts and it trickles down.
It feels like it's okay. Look over here. Don't look here. Look over here, because this is worth your time too. This is something really big. This is important. This is righteous work. Look over here, and we'll get to this later. And I don't question the case agents and everybody that's working on it. They're doing their job. They're doing what they're told, and they have to follow what those orders are as to what they're going to be paying attention to. Yeah. But it's the bosses. It's that boss that has basically the large barrels of information, like the Epstein case and all this that was basically handed to them by New York, saying, here you go. Here's everything we got. Okay, we're going to take it on now over here at DOJ. Great. But we got to open the spigot here first and let that information then flow down to our agents so they can start breaking it down as we slowly empty this barrel of Epstein hell. But the boss is saying, no, we're not even going to open that spigot. Thanks for the barrel of shit, but we're just not going to open the spigot, and nobody down here is going to work on this. We got other stuff. This is another barrel of stuff. Work on this barrel. Not this one, but this one's already queued up. We already know there's a lot of stuff in here. There's a lot of information in here that needs to be processed. Well, this is better. That's the problem. That's the problem that's going on here, because it is, and especially when you have people who've literally campaigned on this stuff. We know there's a lot of people involved in this shit show. Yeah. Yes. And at the end of the day, it doesn't take a bunch of people in a conspiracy type situation to stop this. It takes one person to say, no, we're not going to prioritize that right now. It's important, and we're not saying it's not important. We're just not going to do it. It's on my shelf. See? What's important to us? It's on my shelf. Yes, that's great. Do you ever use it? Do you ever take it off, dust it off, look at it, try to figure out what the hell's going on there? No, but it's on the shelf. It's important. We're working on this. That's the problem.
I think who is working on it, though.
And it's all too convenient of an excuse to say this is righteous over here too. It's cloaking corruption with another righteous task, basically.
Yeah. I think you're right on. I think the fear factor is so immense that it's paralyzing. I really think I have no other explanation for it, because it's the only thing is I see how they can do what they're doing if there's wrongness there. Again, conjecture. I don't know, because I wasn't part of anything like this, but I've been really close to. I've been part of my own investigations where I wanted to do an operation that I thought was extremely righteous, like recruiting people from foreign nations that could have really done a lot of good for our country, but someone over in the State Department decided a high appointee in the State Department had their own little special gig going with that country and didn't want to offend anyone at the wrong time. So I'm told not to do anything.
Yeah.
So go focus on this righteous work instead. So I'm like, you got to be shitting me. All right,
And you don't have much of a choice in that matter.
No.
It's like, okay, I got to go do this.
Yeah, but it doesn't excuse the fact that they're creating, because what Epstein basically was doing, he was a beta tester for a monster factory. because this is really what it was. I mean, he created, because all these people that are saying it's, we have all these other things. We're going to focus on the violence against children and the organized crime aspects. And oh my God, the millions and millions of dollars that JP Morgan Chase was channeling, all the accounts that were being opened up by Epstein for underage children. Isn't that a freaking thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're 1.5 billion is what they're estimating.
That's profound. But if you're saying I'm going to take care of this over here, well, the real thing is you could undermine the entire process if you just took down the first monster factory. I mean, literally, this was a beta test of high-level people about how to run a service of underage children to all these high-level people that are being funded by these you just got to take down the beta tester.
Question for you: does what's happened over in England, does that have any factor that they've stripped Prince Andrew of his title? Does that put any pressure on the FBI to start doing something about this? Because that other country said, oh, F no, we're going to take care of this. We are digging into it. Does their pressure, what they're doing, put pressure on our system?
You would think it would. But as we've seen in politics recently, if people don't give a flip about what someone else is doing, it's not going to put pressure on it at all. I mean, the public opinion doesn't be swaying, people much these days anyway. I mean, look at a government shutdown. The entire public, I don't care what side you're on, says this is the stupidest thing we've ever seen in the world, and yet it doesn't seem to get anyone to move. I think it raised it raised the bar of, hey, we got to take a deeper look at this and do something. But again, that's why the Raskin letter should have done something with Bondi,
right.
But we're still not seeing anything, which is why not? It's like, just, again, we said this on the last show. Here's all you got to do. Just have one of the case agents on one of these investigations that is part of the task force, have them brief what's going on, what they found out. Just have some level of transparency, especially for someone who's committed suicide, supposedly in jail already, even though it's against all the laws of statistics. In cases like this, show that. I mean, but again, just lack of transparency allows us to fill in the gaps of what we think it could be, and then just spools out of control. So, what else?
Like you were saying earlier, it probably comes down to fear in a lot of this, of what we're seeing out there. Because, I mean, if you look at this and you go, okay, well, these people that are in these positions of power, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, they were placed there by certain people. And if you put morally weak people into positions of power, narcissistic people into positions of power, narcissism will always win. It doesn't mean the narcissist will. It means narcissism will always win, meaning it's going to be self-protecting. Because you put people like this into certain positions, they are going to want to protect their position and their clout and this new world that they have of all of this power. And that's going to trump anything else. That's going to trump pushing for what's morally right, even pushing for what some of these people before they were in these positions said, I'm a truth seeker. My goal is to expose this shit. Kash Patel even said, I want to expose this shit. This is going to go down. And then when you see him now talking about this, it's as if that version of him never existed, and we're all just supposed to pretend that he never said those things. That we should just accept. Well, it looks like Epstein was just doing this for himself. Nothing else happened, and that's where the evidence leads. Case closed. And you can't help but think, what the hell's going on here? This doesn't seem like the same human being. This doesn't seem like the same path that he was on. And why is he saying such insane things that do not match with reality, do not match with the facts of the case as we know them, do not match with the supposed moral compass that he had prior and this passion for exposing this shit? And it's talked about like, well, I don't like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches anymore, in the same sort of tone in depth when we're talking about the Epstein case and what's there and what's not there. It's really stunning to watch, but the only thing I can think of at the end of the day is fear. Yes, he is in power, but if you decide I'm going to keep going down this moral crusade of trying to explore the Epstein files, and the person above him is saying, no, you're not. You have a choice. You can either keep going down that moral crusade, you'll probably get fired immediately, and you'll lose all your power and your title and everything else, or you can keep this going. You can keep getting the plane to go take your 26-year-old, go visit your 26-year-old as she's singing somewhere, which, by the way, she's an amazing singer, everybody. We should all sit down and listen and, turn the lights off, light some candles. But you'd lose all of that, and that comes down to putting a morally weak person in a place of power where they're going to do the bidding for you the way you want them to, because this is how they operate.
And I think, when I first came in the FBI, I think it's like 96, 97 when I came out of the Marine Corps. First director I worked for was Louis Freeh. After Louis Freeh, it was Mueller right after 9/11. He took over. And then Mueller, it was, what's his face? Comey. Then Ray, and then I wasn't there for Patel, but there was a shift, and I'm because we're poking at Patel and Bongino and the staff now, but I can honestly tell you, I served under Republican and Democrat leaders, and up until probably first couple years of Mueller's term, I didn't know politics inside the Bureau at all. Towards the end of Mueller's, when Comey came in, all of a sudden it became a thing. And I will tell you, all those things you're saying about, and rightfully so, about the current leadership, I could say it about every single one of them on both sides. I can tell you the stuff that was shut down under Obama's administration, how we were hamstrung under him as well. Profound on the national security side. It was dumbfounding to me because I didn't care, because you don't care about politics,
because it's not. It's about.
It's not. No, and so what happened, and to your point on that, is when I started being able to, again, the behavioral side of me really started flourishing, because when you start seeing the reasons why people make the decisions they are, because when you have government appointees in charge of organizations, it will be political. There will be fear involved in decision making, because they're thinking about their next job. They're thinking about their people's next job. Because when an appointee comes in, they come in with their tribe. I remember, and boy, the Bureau was a very different place, and those former Bureau people will tell you the same thing. During what's his face,
Comey?
No, way before him. When I first came in, Louis Freeh. Yeah. Louis Freeh had been an agent. Louis Freeh had been an attorney and a judge. And Louis Freeh when he came in, he kicked everyone, very much like Patel had wanted to do, but is a very different kind of person, because he had experience in street cred with agents in Bureau. And he came in, kicked everyone out of headquarters and said, we're going to go just fight crime and serve national security. People were experts in different fields. And I have pictures of me at the FBI Academy in Quantico, running one of our final runs with Director Freeh. Director Freeh came and ran with every single academy class. I got my creds from Director Freeh. He was an agent's agent. He was all about being with the people, for the agents. And even when Comey first came in, he would call case agents across the Bureau. I have a sticky note actually I did some pretty good work, and on one of the incentive awards I had gotten, there was actually a sticky note, handwritten sticky note on like one of these little notes right here on my incentive award, said, nice job, hero, on Jay Comey. So he used to do things like that, but then things went sideways. Then fear took over. Then politics started coming in and getting infused. And so it became a very, very different place. And that's when I started seeing, like we're talking about today, this fear factor, it's profound. The impact on it, on working cases, is profound. And we see it at all levels. At the high levels, we're seeing it with these judges, the favoritism, the confirmation biases. It's just crazy. Oversight and outside objective opinions is what is truly, really needed in these cases.
Well,
we're talking about what's going on right now with call it a cover-up, call it a conspiracy, whatever you want to call it. The inaction, basically, of the Department of Justice as of right now, not diving in, not investigating, basically taking all of the information that we have recently learned in that letter from Congress to Pam Bondi, stating, you had 50 witnesses, you got an investigation into 20 co-conspirators, people who were working with Epstein, being basically, the customers as well of Epstein, and these 50 witnesses, and them saying, nope, there's nothing here, nothing to see. They're all not credible. Never mind the fact it's what put Ghislaine Maxwell away. Never mind the fact it's was the inspiration for stripping Prince Andrew of all of his titles of being in the royal family. So clearly, there's some legs to this information, and the fact that the FBI and the DOJ is saying we're not going to touch that right now, for no explanation. Despite there being a massive promise to the public as a whole, to the people they serve, that we are going to dig into this, we are going to dive, and we are going to expose whoever needs to be exposed. Party be damned, we're going to do the right thing. And now when it's their turn to shine, when the spotlight is on them, they're like, nothing to see here. Turns out that it's all a big myth.
You know why?
Damn well it's not. Why?
I think having read that exquisite book by the brave Guffrey,
Giuffre, Virginia Giuffre,
Nobody's Girl. When you saw and get an understanding of Epstein's non-political corruption of everyone he touched.
Yeah,
I think when all these people came out with these they were assuming, they were hardcore thinking, most likely in their brains, it's got to be them. It's not our party, it's them. And then when they got into office, then when they're actually reading the files, then we're listening to the accounts of these, I think, how many girls did they finally identify total? I mean, there's like 200, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They saw it's not just one party. It's not just one academic institution.
Yeah.
It is everyone at this time, everyone. It touches all of these narcissistic megalomaniac asses at this high level, so that if they expose one, this entire network that Epstein created, this monster factory, is going to undermine everything and everyone. That's why I think they're not exposing it, because everyone's going down with it.
And that's the reality of it too. It's not, and it's not just that this is a big house of cards, and it's just only their trail of destruction with abusing these women. These people are placed in the house of cards of every piece of our lives, of every institution in our country. And when you essentially put dynamite in all these different spots and then press the button and it all blows up, you destruct the building and everything with it. And then everyone's like, whoa, how do we fix all these holes around here? I mean, so many things will be affected by this if this information comes out and if these people are exposed, because they're key people in key places, in all sorts of key parts of life, in areas that no one is seeing coming, as being suddenly gone. And what sort of damage it will do, it's going to be catastrophic, but it needs to be done. Otherwise, it's just, well, let's keep this pattern going. Let's keep them bringing in more folks who are going to think the same way and keep abusing people in the same patterns that have been going on before. But it feels that, I feel like for so long, the fear has been, well, taking them all out, is it worth the damage that it will do to so many things? And I feel at this point, the American people are saying, yeah, we've been through enough shit. We've been traumatized enough by all this stuff. What's another societal trauma at this point? If it's going to at least take out a good chunk of these people that are still active. These aren't historical figures that are hiding away. They're still very active in every piece of our world today. And yeah, it's time to call them out. But again, you have those people in all these different places. That's precisely why there's this level of power where they're basically telling us the sky is not blue and expecting us to believe it.
And to Duckin's question about why haven't these girls actually named them, in Jenna's book, even though Jenna came out in Nobody's Girl and named a lot of them, she said even in her death, she was afraid to expose some of these people because of the impact it could have on their families, on her legacy, on their livelihood, on their lives. The fear factor is immense. And as you're describing that, Tony, I was going back to other cases we've covered and the differences in them. So let's take a look at the Diddy case.
Yeah.
Diddy is very similar in a sense of we had trafficking, we had sexual abuse, some potentially minors in there, and yet Diddy was more like, if you're thinking of I think of these things and these people as cancers, right? Diddy was more like a prostate cancer. He's something that you could isolate, you could radiate it, and you could remove it. But this thing like Epstein, since it was so encompassing, it's more like lymphatic cancer.
It's everywhere.
There's no way to capture it all. I think it is so widespread because he knew how to protect himself. Yeah. He knew how to, and that's why he acted so brazenly. Him and Ghislaine as well were so brazen what they're doing, acting with total impunity with everyone and everything, because they captured everyone in every single circle, both sides, so no one could play one side against the other. He was the master of manipulating the entire world and corrupting them to his way of thinking. He normalized, I think he attempted to normalize this behavior with people who didn't even want it. Because when you listen to Jenna's book, he was throwing these young girls at guys in their 80s that were even impotent in the rooms. And you can imagine that these guys were told, hey, I got a really good young girl up here. She's great at giving massages. And the guy's like, really? That's kind of odd. Okay, I'll get a massage. And the girls are then being instructed to go service them like you service me, like you service so-and-so. And these guys are like, what? And all of a sudden they're compromised. Because they had a little bit of inkling, that a little bit of creepy in them, and wham, he's got them.
Yeah. Stacey, what are we looking at in the comments for right now?
A lot of great stuff. Alicia says humans are complicated. As Robin said, they are motivated by many different factors. Candy says, name all the names. Name them. And that was something I was going to ask. Again, there seems to be this cloud of fear. People know the names. And nobody's talking. You talked about loose lips, that people who've left the Bureau, left the DOJ, they have to know these names, but people are not talking. There is something terrifying the living crap out of these people. What is it?
I think they just don't want to, first of all, they don't want to be associated with it because it'll destroy their personal brands. And if you even put think about it, if you even put your name in any way next to the Epstein name, you're going to be blacklisted and rightfully so. And Jenna even talked about this in her book. And one of the challenges they had is that there's a lot of people associated with Epstein that traveled to his island, that went to the parties, kind of like the Diddy. Think about it with the Diddy parties.
Yeah.
You had the Diddy parties, and then you had the white party afterwards. Then you had when everyone was sent home. So here's the challenge with investigating this is that, all right, who was just associated with Epstein and who was really with Epstein? And so that becomes part of it. And so it's hard because there's not a lot of facts and data and details to differentiate the two between. And so if you're anywhere affiliated with it, whether you're just going to shut up silently away, because again, whether it's true or not, remember for years, there was lots of strange, really horrific coincidences of people that ever had anything to say about the Clintons all of a sudden wound up committing suicide and being dead.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think a lot of people have a lot of fear over what's going to happen to me if my name's even affiliated, if I'm even going to say anything, so the fear, again, humans are complicated-ish, but we are all motivated by fear. But what fear looks like to each of us is what is different. And so that's why they're all living in fear. I guarantee it's fear.
And Gen Z says it's not about politics, but there are a lot of politicians involved. And I think that comment, that struck me. I think you're right. I think there's a lot of people.
It's all over.
It is all over. But I think there's a lot of politicians, both sides, that they put on the brakes right now. Like, oh, crap.
The thing that was really more striking, too, was the amount of academic institutions, like high level, presidents of universities, researchers, and so because what Epstein would do is he would fund research. because he'd be like funding this research. He'd be funding this at Harvard University. He'd be funding this out in somewhere at a tech out in California. And so he would fund these research projects. He'd fund these individual researchers themselves and invite them to the island, then throw the great massages at them. And so he was able to get himself entrenched in all these different things and all these different people at the highest levels across the spectrum. Mm-hmm. So we have companies, corporations, academic institutions, and politicians, all at the high level. That's why this network is so intertwined. You're seeing that level of caste system, really, of them being all potentially taken down, because he was interweaving everyone together. For what purpose was he doing it? Make himself safe, because no one's going to take me down, because if you take me down, you're all going down.
Wow.
How do you think some of these folks are handling this right now? Do you think there is intrinsic fear going on with some of these folks at this moment in time, seeing as close, I don't know how close we truly are to any of this information coming out. It feels like we're closer than we have been in the past. Maybe not. Do you think that there is a level of fear with them right now that, oh gosh, this could be exposed? Or are they sitting pretty tight right now, still going, yeah, nothing's going to take me down. It hasn't happened yet. Why would it happen now?
I think everyone feels good until they don't. Because I think what people in desperate situations will align the universe and world around them to feel secure in the moment. And then they breathe a sigh of relief. All right, so we got Bondi to do this, or we got Patel to do this, or the FBI is doing this or not doing this. And so they're able to kind of maneuver themselves into, I'm good. Then all of a sudden, you get one thing that happens, like, the Crown removes the prince status from someone, or a letter comes in from a congressman, and then they go into hyper mode again. So the thing to always watch, again, we don't have this optic because we're not, at that level of behind the scenes, is when a new thing breaks, when a new letter comes in from Congress, when a new public outcry happens, who starts trembling? What tremors in the force you see. So because again, what I do as a behaviorist is you look for deviations from patterns, from life arcs and norms. And anytime you see someone deviate from a behavior spike, something happened there to create a behavior spike. And so what I would be doing if I had the capability, because I don't see behind the scenes, no magic eyes, but I'd be taking this big 50,000 foot optic. And so when a letter from Raskin comes in, something like that comes in, what I want to see is, who all of a sudden starts changing their behavior? Mm-hmm. Who starts scrambling a little bit? Because that's where you then want to pay attention. Is like, someone's got a little bit of a stress attitude here, stress reaction. So what's causing it? Could be a bad day, but it could have been this. And so I'm always kind of looking for deviations from baselines. That's the only really thing you could do.
And that's what I'm wondering about right now with what we saw with Prince Andrew in the UK in the last week or two, where they stripped him of what's left basically of his titles and such. Is that damage control? Is that preparing for what may be about to come? Or is it just damage control from the book? And it's like, well, there's even more negative stuff coming out about Andrew. Or is it like, this is going to get really bad again really quick, and we'd like to already have been out in front of this going, we've already disowned him weeks ago or months ago or whatever it may be. So the royal family doesn't have this big, smudge all over them. If and when these names start dropping and we learn even more about these web of soul rippers.
Yeah. I think, again, my conjecture on it is that when you have something like the book come out and it names him so explicitly in that book, he's got his lawsuits that he's settled for, that was enough for them to say, hey, there's more here. And also because now it's become very evident that there's a lot of banking issues going on. It could tie up a lot more people, and it could get there's a lot more dirt there than's even in the book. Yeah. And I think that's why they took that action, because there's no denying it now. Mm-hmm. And that's why if I was everyone else, I'd be scrambling, if you're involved in this. And that's why I think there's a lot of silence. And that's why every time you see a letter coming in and it hits like this void, it hits like a black hole. that's very telling. It's never just what people are doing that is telling, it's what they're not doing. And when you see a collective silence, that says a lot. As much as it is one person or two people screaming about something, that says something about them. But when you hear a collective silence and like a dull thud when something hits, you're like, ooh, that says a lot more about what everyone might know than what not. So
there's a lot that could very easily come out. I guess the other question I would have, and I'm interested in your perspective on. Eventually, they're going to have to seat the other congresswoman that will then give us the enough people to vote to have this information come out or have the Epstein files released. Who's to say what's going to be released is going to be of any sort of magnitude of information? I mean, what sort of powers does the DOJ have basically to redact pretty much everything and anything they want to, and it just becomes a document of words and names that are missing, and we're just left exactly where we are right now.
Yeah, that's probably what it will wind up being. I'd imagine because they have all the sealed, because like Dufresne, she had a lot of sealed documents from the whatchamacallits, the grand juries. And so a lot of them haven't been unsealed yet. So I imagine there's other girls, all the other girls gave those statements as well. Those are going to be the real, what the what I'd be really interested in is the girl statements. Because those are going to be the ground truth. Those are going to be the granular. Those are going to be the gritty. And those are going to be the ones you really want to talk to. But those are the ones that are the most fearful as well.
Robin, what about the statute of limitations? Are we running out of time? This was asked by Jennifer Nicholson in our chat a while back. I wanted to get to that.
Yeah, and it's a great question, again, because this isn't my violation. I worked, but when I was reading in the book, here the statute of limitations is a big problem in this thing because kind of a roundabout answer to that is the statute of limitations on these things is coming up. And what I found out by doing, and when we started covering this case, is the statute of limitations is such a small period of time. Meanwhile, women typically don't report these types of things until they hit their 40s. Because of that fear factor, because of working through the trauma, because they feel like it was their fault, because of the way that the groomers made them feel. And so that's why the statute of limitations a lot of times runs out on these things before they make the claims. And then they can start claiming things like false memories. And it's just, she said, she is willing, she's getting money for this. I mean, they're using all the standard tricks to re-victimize the girls on these things. So statute of limitations is definitely not on the victim side on this. This whole thing, the whole law system, the legal system needs to be revamped when it comes to this. Because I learned an awful lot, because we talk about on the show a lot the false memories that people will have over time. But when it comes to girls that have been abused like this, what happens to their memories is false memories and inaccurate memories can happen when it comes to timelines, when it happens to places and places potentially. But when it comes to the individuals themselves, the most accurate is them. Because as Jenna said, when you have a 200 or 300 pound beast on top of you, inches from your face, you never forget that face. Never. So they're the ones that you really want to talk to on this. They're the only ones I would trust. Seriously, out of all this, I mean, I won't trust anything coming out of what the government says. I don't know how you make the girls, Nick, I don't know how you inspire the girls to feel safe to share the details of who they were with.
Because Virginia is just one of them, and there's so many more. But they have an interest in continuing their own lives. They have their own futures. They have their own families. They have their own world that they have, if they're still alive. Doesn't necessarily want to revolve around this horrible trauma of their past. But aside from them coming out and telling their stories, I don't know that anyone ever will. And I don't know that we're ever going to get to the bottom of it until all of this round of abusers that we're talking about here are dead and gone. And then they've essentially won because they got to live their life and get away with it. And then it just becomes some sort of historical detail of these monstrous characters that once roamed the earth.
And that's why I call them soul rippers.
I'm sorry, Robin. We're sending such a horrific message to survivors of assault.
Yeah.
We're saying we don't care about your story. We're saying you're lying. You're making it up. And then there's this other narrative of you've got to tell your story. You have to speak up for yourself. So it's like just this thunderstorm just crashing against each other, and just none of it makes any sense.
It needs to be safe for them to tell their story.
Exactly.
That's what we need, is an environment where that
structure
exists.
around you. You know, Jenna talked about, that's why this book is such an important book. She talked about it so perfectly and beautifully in the book. I get so misty when I think about her in that book. She talked about, she wanted to, and she became an advocate for victims like her, but it came at a cost because she was re-traumatized every time she told the story, and she's trying to be just a mother and a wife, and she's trying to be the best at, but every time she's re-traumatized by this, it affected her family. Then the other thing is, she was, as she said in her own words, she was unemployable because no one wanted to hire, in her mind, someone that was sex trafficked. And no one wanted to hire someone that was such a public figure. And so she had to take settlements because she had to provide for her family who was unemployable. I mean, it's just, when you she allowed you to walk a mile in her shoes to get that deep, active empathy, to understand what goes on and what courage it takes, not just for her, but a team around her to stand with her, to fight the monster machine that Epstein created and all these other monsters create, because they know the system. So, I mean, think about it. So here's Epstein. He's got the most powerful lawyers in the world that know the legal system better than anyone else. They know the loopholes. They know the statute of limitations. And you combine that with their predatory grooming techniques. They know how to victimize so effectively that he operated with impunity. He's throwing little girls at anyone he wanted to without any fear, because and then Ghislaine Maxwell was doing the same thing. All she had to do was recruit one girl, and she then had that girl recruit all the other girls. It's not me, it's all the other girls. And then when they give them money in exchange, well, they're just money hungry. They're money grubbers. I mean, oh my God. Yeah. That's why that's why I use that word soul ripper, because these are not humans. They don't even resonate with the same species in my mind.
Yeah. They know how to work this in such an intricate, monstrous way that it is truly shocking. It's like, how are you processing anything? And this is how it comes out. There's so many questions, and we'll keep covering it. We'll keep seeing what happens here. As of this recording, on that letter that was sent to Bondi, they're demanding by the 10th that an answer is given, and as we've seen already from Bondi, super mature answers like your mother and things like that coming out.
That's a whole other thing.
Essentially, we're dealing with 5-year-olds running the government. I'm
the glass half full. I'm very positive about everything in the world, and here's the good news. Good news is this. Good news is shows like ours. There's a lot of people covering this, and a lot of people holding people accountable in ways they couldn't be held accountable before. When Epstein started his monster factory, he had no idea that ever in the history of our species that these types of shows would be out there to force him to be compliant, to force the world to and allow these girls to feel safe to come forward. The more this happens, the better, because all the girls that, even the girls were afraid to talk to each other. Jenna talked about that in the book. They're afraid to talk to each other. When they finally got together, she was holding a retreat from them all to get together. COVID shut it down before it actually happened. But it was just, they were afraid to even talk to each other. That's the fear they had. They couldn't even bond for a long time until they actually finally could, because the shame that they're made to feel. And that's how these horrendous soul rippers do it. God, anyway, I digressed again.
It's okay.
Your thoughts in the comments section. Everybody put it there. We'd love to hear it. Robin's latest book, Unbreakable Alliances. Go check it out wherever books are sold. And press subscribe as well. I'm going to go bathe in Purell again. I feel like every time we get into this one. But it's an important one, and I'm glad we can have these conversations, and this continues to need to be exposed. And if you feel the same need, share this. so other people can hear about it, because I think that's half of it. A lot of people, they don't realize the depth of what the hell has been going on. So please do that. Until next time, for Robin, for Todd, for Stacy, I'm Tony Brueski. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast. This is The Big Breakdown, a long look back at some of the biggest stories we're covering for you at the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today. This is Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Here now, Tony Brueski.
Virginia Giuffre's book is out, and a lot of people are starting to get a little nervous. A lot of powerful folks not happy. Oh, yeah, then there's, the Epstein files that, we just got to seat that member of Congress, let him do what the people elected them to do. Expose this shit show. It's a really interesting time to watch, and I want to let you know or ask you to do the following. Watch what's going on. Watch what people aren't saying. Watch their actions right now. Watch what the powerful are doing but not saying. Because it's not like the powerful are going to be like, oh shit, that book dropped. Oh my God, I better do this. They're not going to verbally tell you this. But they know it's coming. And those actions, those pathetic ways that people who've done something really horrible and thought they would never get caught and now know they're going to get caught, they're going to act interestingly, to put it lightly. So watch what happens right now with certain individuals. Because before the next leak drops, before the next court unseals another name, the most powerful predators on earth are already preparing. They become preppers in a weird, sick sort of way. They know what's coming. They might not know the exact day or the exact file, but they can feel the oxygen shifting in the room. Because when you've lived your life off the suffering of others, when you've used money, charm, and secrecy to keep people compliant, you develop a sixth sense for danger. You can smell exposure before it happens. And that's what's happening right now behind the closed doors of the people who orbit Jeffrey Epstein's world. It's a quiet panic, not loud enough for the headlines, not public enough for accountability, but unmistakable if you know what to look for. Every predator in power has a contingency plan. They always have. Some of them are legal, some are financial, and some are psychological, and some are kind of a little mix of everything. A fruit punch, if you will. In the months since Virginia Giuffre's posthumous memoir, Nobody's Girl, was announced, a book that, by the way, is managing to rattle people who thought they were untouchable, there's been a shift in tone, and now that the book has officially dropped, we've gone from denial to defense. Attorneys are back channeling journalists, are receiving reminder letters about defamation thresholds. And whole PR firms are being quietly retained not for crisis management, but pre-crisis control. That's the difference between damage control and information warfare. One reacts, the other anticipates. When Amy Wallace, Giuffre's author, told the world she still has those taped interviews locked in a safe place, she didn't just rattle cages, she detonated a clock. Because that single sentence confirmed what every powerful man in Epstein's former orbit has feared for years. There's more. There are names, there are voices, and there are receipts. You can see the flinch in how they move. Some of them have suddenly become born-again philanthropists. Others have retired from public life under the guise of health or privacy. But behind the soft lighting and those foundation photo ops, something else is happening. containment. When the powerful get scared, they don't confess, they coordinate. Containment happens in layers: legal, reputational, and institutional. The legal layer looks like this: non-disclosure agreements quietly reinforced, old settlements revisited, lawyers combing through archives to assess exposure risk. You don't need to have done something criminal to panic. You just need your name to have existed too close to Epstein's. The reputational layer is even more transparent: public distancing, selective outrage, preemptive denials, the don't know, they barely met him, they never visited the island. The script writes itself, and yet it always sounds the same. The institutional layer is where it gets darker, because this is where government agencies and financial entities start protecting themselves by proxy. You will see delays in document processing, ongoing investigations that stretch years past relevance, and judges issuing protective orders to keep unsealed evidence redacted for privacy reasons. But privacy from whom? The dead victims or the living predators? Let's not pretend the evidence doesn't exist. Epstein was obsessive. He recorded everything: bedrooms, bathrooms, massage tables, conversations. He built what Virginia Giuffre described as a library of leverage. And that library didn't vanish when he died in that cell in 2019. Parts of it are locked in DOJ custody. Other pieces are scattered: files, drives, partial transcripts. And according to multiple journalists and insiders, certain individuals have copies. They do. So imagine for a moment what that means. If you're one of the powerful names who might be on those tapes, you're not just worried about the Department of Justice. You're worried about each order. Oh, and there are depositions. There's all sorts of shit. I've even seen some of it. It's not pretty. Because leverage doesn't just die with a blackmailer. It gets inherited. Those tapes aren't just evidence. They're insurance policies traded like currency among people who have everything to lose. And that's the part the public never sees. The mutual blackmail economy. It's not a conspiracy. It's a survival instinct among the elite. If I have your secret and you have mine, we're both protected. That'll work, right? And that's how predators protect predators. As I always say, I don't know anyone that protects predators other than predators. Every major name circling this story has a legal artillery on standby. These aren't the lawyers you hire for parking violations. They are the crisis management, the crisis containment specialists, the kind who understand that the real trial is public opinion. Their strategy isn't to win in court, it's to win the narrative war. Step 1, muddy the water. Step 2, threaten the journalist. Step 3, rebrand the accused as misunderstood victims of cancel culture. You can see this pattern in play already. Lawsuits against media outlets that dare mention certain names, aggressive defamation, mitigation campaigns, and preemptive settlements that never see daylight. And the thing about power is, it's always loud when it wants to hide something. They'll issue denials in bulk, categorically false, baseless claims, no evidence, because repetition is a narcotic. If you repeat the denial enough times, some people will start believing it out of fatigue and even repeating it. People don't like to admit that the people that they thought were good are bad. We don't. As human beings, we don't like admitting we're wrong. But ask yourself, if that's what you're doing, you're standing up for someone that you just categorically deny the truth about, you categorically deny hundreds of allegations against. Why? Were you there? Why do you have knowledge that says that this story isn't true, that these things did not happen at the hand of these people? Why are you defending them? I don't know anyone that protects predators other than predators. Until you get into like Stockholm syndrome and all that. And I think there's a good chunk of our country that's living that way. But everyone can take a step back. Everyone can go, you know what? Yeah, I was duped too. That's a psychology of corruption fatigue. And it's one of the most effective protection mechanisms there is. Let's talk about the government side, because the FBI's role here isn't just silence, it's structure. The Bureau holds evidence, tapes, depositions, unredacted flight logs. The DOJ holds sealed files, and for years, both have cited ongoing investigation as the reason nothing moves. That phrase, ongoing investigation, is the bureaucratic equivalent of a life sentence for the truth. It doesn't mean something's being worked on. It means something's being buried under process. You know who else loves ongoing investigations? Predators. Because as long as the system is still looking into it, the public is kept looking away from it. And inside those institutions are good people, agents, attorneys, analysts who do want this information released. But they run into what former FBI insiders call institutional self-preservation. That's when the agency decides that protecting its own image matters more than exposing its failures. Some have described it as moral compartmentalization. The idea that people convince themselves they're following procedure when they're actually following orders that protect predators. And it's not always conspiracy. Sometimes it's just cowardice in a suit. When powerful people are bracing for exposure, you can see it in their behavior long before you see it in the headlines. And that's what I'm telling you to watch for right now. They overreact, they overshare, they perform morally, or they're suddenly silent. Suddenly the guy who used to laugh off accountability is sponsoring panels about women in leadership. The mogul who dismissed trafficking allegations 5 years ago is now championing awareness initiatives. The same billionaires who partied with Epstein are donating to anti-trafficking NGOs with press releases timed to every new revelation. In queue. Send it out. I couldn't possibly be involved with this. Look how great I am. Look how much I'm against people like that when you're actually exactly that. That's not redemption. That's called theater. In psychology, it's called anticipatory atonement. The illusion of moral repair before the crime has been publicly confessed. It's a predator's way of trying to rewrite his own obituary before anyone else can. Control the narrative. Again, as I always say, in true crime, all roads lead to narcissism. While all of this unfolds in the public, a second operation is happening in the background. The erasure campaign. Teams are quietly cleaning up search results, sanitizing Wikipedia edits, filing DMCA takedown requests for unflattering photos, and running reputation management software to drown negative associations in paid content. It's industrial scale laundering, not of money, but of memory. And the timing isn't random. Each time a new Epstein-related document dump or media release is rumored, there's a wave of digital whitewashing within days. Watch for it. It's a modern equivalent of shredding evidence, only now it happens in the cloud. But the thing is, the cloud doesn't forget. For some, it's not about narrative, it's about distance. We've already seen a pattern of high net worth individuals relocating assets and residences, trusts moving offshore, shell companies re-registered in friendlier jurisdictions, and financial footprints blurred. These moves don't always mean guilt, but they mean fear. Fear of lawsuits, fear of confiscation, fear of discovery. And the irony is almost poetic. The same people who weaponize secrecy to exploit others are now using it to protect themselves from exposure. The difference is this time it might not work. The ghost in the network? Now here's the thing no one in that circle can escape. The digital trail. You can delete files, scrub photos, rename corporations, but metadata doesn't lie. Flight manifests, bank transfers, email servers. Someone somewhere always has a backup. And the survivors? The ones who lived through Epstein's system, they know it. They know that leverage cuts both ways. They know why there's such desperation to frame Virginia Giuffre's story as complete, as though her death closed the book. But nobody's girl wasn't closure. It was ignition. Every name she hinted at, every unnamed governor, senator, prime minister, billionaire number one, is now a breadcrumb trail the public won't stop following. And the people behind those names are scrambling, not because they can prove their innocence, but because they know innocence isn't what saves you in the court of public opinion. Control does. When you strip away the wealth, the yachts, the legal teams, what you are left with is fear. Pure, uncut fear. Psychologically, predators protect predators for one reason: they recognize themselves in each other. The same narcissism that fuels exploitation also fuels the need for alliance. The same entitlement that justified the abuse now justifies the cover-up. And when the walls start closing in, the same patterns emerge across every institution. Denial? I had no idea. Deflection. Why aren't you talking about insert something else here? And dehumanization. These girls knew what they were doing. When you hear someone say these things, know what they're doing. And you have delay. We'll release those files after further review. We got to look at it over here to make sure it's okay. Make sure it's accurate. Or make sure it doesn't contain your name or other predators that you're buddies with. It's a behavioral script older than justice itself. And here's the ugly truth. Systems don't reform because predators are still running them. They're not abnormalities in any of this. They're not anomalies. They're architects. Epstein wasn't a glitch in the system. He was the system functioning exactly as designed. A place where money rewrites morality, access erases accountability, and loyalty is measured by how much truth you're willing to bury. That's why the names haven't dropped. Not because there's no evidence, but because exposure would burn so many bridges, topple too many donors, embarrass too many agencies, and unravel too many myths about who runs the world. Predators protect predators because the entire ecosystem rewards it. It's safer to be a silent accomplice than a loud casualty, until it isn't. And make no mistake, something is coming. Files do get out. Data leaks happen. Whistleblowers reach a breaking point. Maybe it'll be a journalist who refuses to sit on another redacted name. Maybe a disgruntled insider who's seen too much. Maybe a survivor's estate that decides posthumous silence isn't justice. And when it happens, it won't just be one headline. It will be a domino effect. Reputations collapsing in real time. Bring it on. The billionaires who thought they'd aged out of relevance will find themselves right back in the spotlight. Not for what they built, but for who they broke. And the institutions that protected them will claim ignorance. They always do. The question now isn't if this information leaks, it's when, and when it does, we'll see the trust test of our justice system, whether it's built to protect the public or to protect the powerful. Because predators can hide behind process, they can hide behind money, they can even hide behind philanthropy, but they can't hide forever. The problem is forever can last a long time when everyone who should act is busy protecting their own reflection. Predators protect predators. Institutions protect reputations. And the rest of us are left wondering how many lives it takes before anyone decides that truth matters more than comfort. Every era has its reckoning. For decades, the Epstein circle has been the open wound the world keeps bandaging instead of cleaning. But infection doesn't heal through neglect. It spreads. And that's exactly what we're watching now. The slow, quiet panic of people who built their lives on lies and are now terrified of losing the one thing they can't buy: silence. When those names finally drop, when those tapes finally surface, it won't just expose individuals, it will expose a civilization that decided protecting predators was easier than dismantling the system that made them powerful. And maybe, just maybe, that exposure is the only form of justice still left. Let the sun shine in and sanitize the shit. Your thoughts in the comment section on YouTube, please. Search Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. That is where you will find us. Do that same search wherever you get podcasts, and you'll find us there too. Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. And do press subscribe wherever it is you are consuming this material right now. Podcast, YouTube, whatever it is, hit subscribe. We got a lot more coming. Stay tuned. I'm Tony Brueski. We'll talk again.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast. This is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Brueski, Stacey Cole, and Todd Michaels.
I'm going to start with this. I don't know anyone who protects a predator other than a predator. And yet that's exactly what we've watched happen for decades at the highest levels of power. Virginia Giuffre's voice was supposed to be buried with her, but it's louder now than ever, rattling the walls of governments, law firms, boardrooms that swore they knew nothing. Today, we're with the former FBI Special Agent Robin Dreeke, former chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program. We're pulling back the curtain on how predators protect each other, why the system still shelters them, and what happens when silence becomes a survival instinct. This isn't about conspiracy, it's about psychology, about the psychology of power, leverage, and fear. And if you think it ends with Epstein, you are not paying attention. Robin, welcome. And Robin, I want to start here. When you hear the phrase, predators protect predators, what does it mean behaviorally?
I tell you, Tony, I'm so glad we're covering this one. Yet this is a rough one. I mean, it's hard not to get tear jerked when looking at this book, covering this book, and when I hear predators protecting predators. You know what my first response is? What? And because this is such, out of everything we cover, believe it or not, this is one of the most hardest things I think for us to understand, because it's contemplative, systemic, horrendous behavior over long periods of time. And so when predators are protecting predators, I always just got to look at, all right, what are the fundamentals of human behavior? And that is control, power, feeling safe. And so predators protecting predators is really about people protecting their own mindset and their own mind think about how screwed up the world is around them. So they want to surround themselves in that echo chamber so they can keep going with that abhorrent behavior. Granted, they don't think it is. But if you get in that chamber where you have other predators around you thinking the same thing, yes. And the key here is to always remember, none of these predators are doing it for the other person, because that would require empathy. That would require a bit of altruism about taking care of someone else. None of them are doing that. It is all extremely narcissistic, self-serving. Again, it's a term of art, narcissism. I don't know because I'm not a licensed clinician, but it is extremely, extremely self-serving. And it's the most toxic thing we can possibly see.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to try and jump behind the mind here of this, and we're going to try and do that today, because I mean, it's simple to look at this and go, these are horrible, horrendous human beings. They are, but how do they operate and operate in such public arenas in front of all of us, and even when we see them? I mean, we have a very bizarre ability as human beings who are not predators to make excuses for them, to have some sort of ways of rationalizing that this person's behavior over here doesn't influence this over here. It's bizarre because the behavior is so abhorrent. It's about as bad as it gets, next to murder. I think some could argue it's even worse. But we, as a society, even when we know about it, we're just like, well, I mean, the examples that come to my mind would be like some obvious ones. R. Kelly, for example, we knew what the hell he was doing. We saw the tape came out. There he is in his home. I mean, there's a freaking Soul Train award in the background. And he's there with a child. And everybody's like, well, maybe it was this, maybe it was that. It's like, it's him. It's him in the video. This is his house. Clearly, it is his house. There's his award. And he had an even more successful stretch of his career after all of that came out. I mean, it's really fascinating the way that we can kind of compartmentalize these people on the outside. And I don't want to say we're protecting them as a society, but is it because the truth is just too dark and our brains just can't quite contemplate how one could actually be doing these sort of things to others? So in a way, we act as if they're not?
There's a lot of reasons and a lot of data points on this one. So when you take someone of celebrity and notoriety, a lot of times we don't want to believe it. And so we're going to rationalize away what we're seeing, because if we acknowledge the fact that these people that we might have idolized and might set up on a pedestal and we admired, to say they're doing these abhorrent things would invalidate our own ability to see the world accurately around us. And so that goes against how we see the world and how we see ourselves. And so we're reluctant to do those things. So imagine this, we love doing these thought experiments because it really helps us understand deeper. Remove, like R. Kelly, great example, remove his title, name, and position from that entire scenario and ask yourself, if you saw that behavior from someone that you didn't know, would your reaction be different? Yes. And so that's definitely part of the data points on it. And also, we all experience this in our lives as well. The vast majority of people do fall within the normal parameters of human behavior. We all have trauma. We've all had experiences. But very rarely have we, unless we're part of this culture and part of this world, have we been exposed to it at that personal one-on-one level. And so because we haven't, we don't have an exposure to it. And so we can't believe it's true, or we just saw it in a movie. Or a lot of times the worst thing some people will do is that, oh, they must all just be it's that group of people. It's all condoned. It's see what I mean? So people will do all these amazing things to rationalize away horrendous things they're seeing because they don't want to believe it, because again, it hurts how we see the world around us. It hurts our self-image. It is hard to explain, but it's never just one thing that is causing it.
Yeah.
So why do we give celebrities a pass? Why do we? Sorry, Tony, I'm invoking Michael Jackson because I just heard Thriller.
I was thinking of Jared from Subway too.
Well,
yeah, I mean, they're all coming. They're all coming back to me now.
Well, when we have these great, and to your point, when we have these great, rags to riches stories, or not even rags to riches, or just these great stories that we want to believe, we don't want to have it crashed around us, because again, it invalidates how we see people, how we see others, and our own ability to assess. We always want to believe the best in ourselves. We want to believe that we're really good at discerning crazy from not crazy. But the reality is no. So this is where it's okay to be honest. It's okay to be fallible. And if you see something that's off, one of the greatest things we can have as a human being is humility to say, oops, I was wrong there. We really need to have some deeper curiosity of what the hell is that? We got to dive deeper on that. The longer you do things like this and the longer you work with people, the more you realize you're never 100% right, and you can't be right all the time. But what you should see is recognizing someone in something that is deviating from a norm of what we expect to see, because that's what it is too. We expect to see an arc, because this is what they're really, just think about this. Celebrities and people of notoriety are really, and most people on TikTok and everything right now, are really great at posting that 5-second highlight reel of their lives.
Yeah.
And so we start believing the 5-second highlight reel is that arc. And so it gets harder and harder to believe. There's a major spike from what we think we're going to see and expect. Because again, and then we fall into the realm of, well, it must not be right because it's a deviation. No, you're only seeing such a small glimmer. That's why continually be open to the data point you're seeing, and also be discerning as them as well, because people can come at you and people can try to discredit. I mean, there's so many things that come in this. That's why I go back to what we said a couple shows ago. Use the word maybe.
Yeah. I mean, what you're saying, I mean, it goes against how we see the world around us. I mean, we're not good at accepting the world around us. We want to go with this vision that we have for it, or what we've told ourselves, or what we've been told. Is that like an evolutionary problem? Are we just not very evolved and very good at seeing our surroundings in for what they actually are? I don't know. I'm fascinated by this. I don't know. I'm not shocked by anything anymore. I mean, I think all of us kind of feel that way to a certain extent. I think I kind of feel numb to a certain extent of just the amount of figures that, you know, we thought were good and pure and philanthropists and this and that. And then it turns out like, oh shit, like all this isn't true. I feel like I personally, I don't have any problem seeing the world of what is around me. I have no problem saying I'm wrong or that what I thought was correct is incorrect. I like that. That is a freeing thing. It seems very youthful. It seems very emotionally immature to look at the world in any other way. Is this a problem of emotional maturity that we as a society we're very stunted as a whole, or at least in massive amounts of people are, and a very small percentage is able to kind of see through the blinders and are able to realize, no, this shit is crazy. But then when you raise your hand and say it before anybody else is saying it, you get shot down. You get shut down. Nobody wants to hear what reality might be, even if it is very dark.
It's a really great question. Anytime we start talking about our evolution and us as a species, I really love it because it really helps us explain and understand what's going on and what we're seeing and observing. Believe it or not, we are really, really good as a species, not as good as some animals in a kingdom, of seeing things that spike out of the norm of what we expect to see, because we are constantly baselining the world around us. For what purpose? To feel safe. And as the Homo sapiens we are really, really skilled at controlling our environment around us, or at least trying to feel safe. We control our food sources, we control our shelter, we control fire, we control all these things so we can provide and we have offspring. And in order to control the world, in order to control threats, we're very good at seeing what stands out from normal. That is a very pragmatic, objective thinking brain. And the way that you're just describing yourself, Tony, and we all try to do this is, and we all think we're doing this, is we're objective seeing data coming in. We see data come in, we assess what is cause and effect, and that's why we can move forward. And this is what we're doing when we're doing investigations and when we're doing assessments like this. But what happens is, and that's the higher functioning brain we all have. When you're talking about these other reactions that people are having, you're dealing with emotional reactions. Emotional reactions is the lower thinking brain. When people are reacting emotionally, that is, emotional regulation is low. And we've talked about this numerous times. You know, when it comes to emotional intelligence, EQ, one of 5 facets of emotional intelligence is our emotional regulation. And so when we are emotionally reacting to something, which is the fight or flight that kicks in, and defensiveness, all these things where we get emotionally hijacked, that is our lower thinking brain engaging, and that's why we're subjected to chaos. And so what does social media do right now? What's TikToks, Instagram, Facebook, everything, all the social networking platforms, typically they're getting you to react emotionally to things because that sells ad space. And so but as a species, we're extremely capable of it. It's just a matter of how do we get that engaged, and we get it engaged by asking what went on here, what's going on, what's the cause and effect, asking those what questions. When we start asking why questions, why did this person do this, then we get very subjective. And when we get the subjective brain going, there's lots of opinions, and opinions tend to not be as focused on facts. Can be, but they're influenced by emotions. keep to the what questions. What specifically happened? What was the outcome they were seeking? What caused them to do this? Because again, it keeps that cognitive, thoughtful brain engaged.
Yeah.
Could it be that there's just evil people? I mean, is this just the purest form of evil that we've seen?
So it's interesting when you and a lot of people will attach the label of evil to things and acts and everything, and that, believe it or not, so again, let's do a thought experiment. And here's the challenge: as a species, we are evolved into what we are because of our belief systems that allow us to move beyond 150 in a tribe to more collective things, which is our religion, our beliefs, our ethics, our morals. All these things allow us to collect them together. And in order to do that, we created a word like evil because it keeps us in fear. When we fear evil, it keeps us corralled as a species. And that's not to say there isn't evil. I'm just saying that it's a word that people will use. But the universe is just being what the universe is. And you'll have two sides of the coin on this. You have people that'll say, yes, people are born evil or do evil acts. And then you'll have people that are anthropologists coming in, scientists coming in and say, well, here's the cause and effect of the genetics and biology that happened and the nature and nurture part that happened earlier on in life. And they were just formed in this horrendous soup of bad. And they weren't born evil. They were just created, unless you're dealing with a Koberger type. So, so long answer to your question, Stacy, is I really think it depends on how you see the world and the universe. It can be evil to some people. It can be a really horrendous mix of bad genetics and biology and experiences that created in others. So I think all of it above.
It is the way that these figures are protected amongst their circles. Is this a uniquely American problem? Is this the way that we see it, or does this sort of thing go on everywhere around the world? I mean, does it vary culturally in terms of how we interact with one another, with our societies? And other cultures similar to us seem to have similar issues. Does it have to do with the way that we live our lives with the societies that we have and where we live?
That's a really good question too. So let's do a paintbrush first. Yeah. Paintbrush, my initial response is no, because we are all Homo sapiens. It doesn't, us as a species doesn't distinguish between anything. We are just all genetically coded for the same vulnerabilities, same impact of the world around us, our genetics, biology, and all that thing. Social status and social situations will fuel it or tamp it down. I would think when you think about us in the United States and what we're facing here, there are potentially some accelerators that can throw fuel on a fire of someone that is more inclined to it than less inclined to it. That might not happen another place in the world. And the only reason I say it is because our laws and our Constitution and the things that we have for penalties for people tend to be lower here than in other cultures. Believe it or not, people who think we're so oppressive, I mean, seriously, just travel anywhere in the Middle East, and you'll see that. No, so remember this: fear is the greatest motivator human beings have from doing bad things. And in our country, the fear of being caught for that here, compared to the fear of being caught and having parts of your body lopped off from other countries, is much higher. And so, as a species, it's universal. As nation states, I think it will probably vary depending on motivations put in place by penal codes, and also the amount of people that you can collectively get in a place that can get in that horrible groupthink. But with the advent of these horrendous online sites and the dark web and the ability to travel, it has spread more around the world, I think, globally than it used to be able to.
And what's very disturbing about Virginia Giuffre's book and the whole Epstein list and everything is, in our worlds, we think a lot of times we think of predators as, oh, they're out on the dark web. They're these creepy people that are hiding behind computers, in their parents' basement or whatever it may be, that are they're the scum of society, and obvious scum of society too. But they're not. I mean, what we're talking about here in this case is leaders of the world, business leaders, country leaders, things of that nature, people that are not, they do not fit that profile whatsoever. But something in them at some point said, no, this is okay for me to do. And what makes it even more disturbing is it wasn't just hidden, in some hotel room, in some one-off thing that no one's going to find out about. We're talking about Epstein. We're talking about Epstein Island. These people literally traded these teenage girls as currency, and they had to collectively come together and say, yeah, let's do all this together. Let's go over to Jeff's place. And because it's hard to wrap my mind around how this conversation even begins. How one is if you have nothing going on in that world, you're not a predator, you haven't done anything, and then somehow you get roped into it in some way, shape, or form because of the people that you end up being around or surrounding yourself with for whatever you're doing in life. That to me is such a weird concept of well, I never tried that before. This seems like a great idea. I mean, where the hell? I mean, where does that come from? I mean, it's just baffling to me how one could go from not being that to then getting entangled in this sort of stuff and becoming a frequent flyer on the Lolita Express.
Well, and let me interject something here. There had to be people in this orbit. And this is both political sides have been caught up in this web. There are people on the periphery going, you're going where? You're doing what? They know about this. What made them turn a blind eye? What made them go, all right, well, you go do whatever it is you're doing over there this weekend? I mean,
well, I want to talk about that, but I want to talk about the actual interaction first, because I do want to I want to talk about that angle of the folks that are surrounding it, but I want to talk about what I was saying first, is the actual almost like recruiting, if you will, of someone to join the club.
So to me, it's unlocking the darkness from within. I think it's the best way that I can really kind of think about it. And so I'm going to take it to my world of spy recruiting. And because there's a lot of similarity here, as much as people are groomed into being trafficked through shame and manipulation tactics, what's happening on the other end to potentials is it always starts with a question, a very softball type question. And the question, so in my world of recruiting an intelligence officer, one of the ways I would start testing whether this individual was willing to break a rule that they had in place, like an intelligence officer that I'm trying to recruit that's working on behalf of a foreign nation. They were not allowed to have outside employment outside of their diplomatic duties. And so I would then use sources of people around them and myself, if I had an interaction, of asking about some of their challenges, priorities, and pain points in life, and ask them what kind of things they're willing to do in order to make those things happen. In other words, hey, I have an opportunity to make some money on the side for you and your family, if that's something you think you're comfortable doing. And then based on that reaction, so here's what I would do. Even if they said no, but I'd sit there like this for a second and thought about it. Oh, they're thinking about it. They're thinking about going down a darker path, a more challenging path, a path that had a little more danger in it in order to service a party in need in their life. And so now we flip it to the Epstein type group of people. So when you sensitize, because I call it sensitizing your environment towards an end goal you're seeking, you have someone like Epstein or Giselle or whoever say, hey, we're going to be having a party this weekend at the place, and you can come at two different times. You can come when it's just going to be this one group, but if you're able to make it for this one, we're going to have so and so and so, and we're actually going to have some of our younger women there. So you don't even say that, you just kind of sensitize them towards who the audience is going to be, who the attendees are going to be, and watch reaction. And so
it's a test.
I think it's all a test. So again, I don't know it. I only know from the spy recruitment side, but to me, the way that they start seeing who wants to join this club is who is going to give it a thought of who they want to be. Now, see, people like us, I hear that you're going to do that, and I'm sharing what is going on in my life to my loving critics, and my loving critics say to me, "What the hell, are you nuts? You don't go there. What the hell's that got to do with anything? Why would those people be there? Stay away from that crazy." Now, people that don't know, and then they're just going, and so it's a slight grooming and testing to who might be willing to entertain the thought of that.
And I want to go to Stacey's point about that, where the surrounding folks normalize it, where it's like, oh, and like, you know what's going on over there, but you really don't, and you're going to tell yourself it's something else, but it's not. That's the other angle where, okay, because it's not just the circle of the people who are actionably doing these horrible things to people. It's the infrastructure around it, the people who may not necessarily be participating in the act, but allowing that infrastructure to thrive and allowing it to go on, even without necessarily a threat of them being exposed for something. That it's just, is it more just of an ease of operation of, well, we kind of need this person here for this, so whatever they're doing over there, I don't need to know about, and I'm just going to pretend it's not happening. That seems to be a weird way of thinking, but it seems to be, how these sort of structures flourish.
So social proof is a huge part of all these things. And when one person, matter of fact, even in her book, she starts out by saying, when one guy was picking her up on the side of the road, when she just left being raped, there was another girl in the car waving her in, saying it's okay to come on in. So just using social proof in these situations will do just that. And so say you have someone that is to your point, is in this circle, but not the close, darker circle. I mean, it's so much easier to really think about how Diddy was doing his white parties, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And then after a certain point, people get kicked out because, we had our special club, but until then, everyone is kind of on the peripheral. And this is kind of the social proof. It was going on and you're part of it. It was, but not really, because so here's what a healthier person is doing that might be there, but questioning, hey, what's going on here? What are they going to see? They're going to see social proof by, hey, all these high-powered people don't seem to have a problem with what's going on and who's there, so it must be okay. And then if they see the younger ladies there, they're going to be looking for cues from them. And if they've been trained and groomed to behave a certain way, what are they going to see from them? That they're happy, they're go-lucky, they're happy to be there, and they're so grateful that they're having these opportunities. Whatever they've been told and scripted to do in that environment to give that facade of, oh, this must be okay, I must be the wrong one that's wrong. Because again, if they're kept from talking to each other about what they're seeing, it's easier to just, oh, it must be okay. How many times have everyone said that at some point in their life? It must be okay because they all think it.
Right.
And when you have people that have a lot of power and you're like, oh, well, they're participating in this. Oh, well, that must be okay. I mean, I guess that's how some will filter it through their brains. What's, I guess, another kind of just hard to wrap your mind around, it's a healthy mind around, is it the more these people have to lose, the darker their shit gets? Because, I mean, if you're thinking of the creep in the basement, preying on people that way, they have nothing to lose. They're already pretty much at rock bottom in life. But you have these people who are literally at the top of the world, where if this were to be exposed, if someone was to find out what the hell you're doing, I mean, or does that not even run through their mind? Is it just this feeling of infallibility that no one's ever going to find these things out, that enables them, is somewhere in their mind to say, well, I got nothing to worry about, nothing to lose. I have nothing to worry about because if there's just no way of being caught. We're so insulated here. I mean, it's is it because they've been insulated for so long and we're finally in a culture where we're exposing this sort of shit and not just going, well, men will be men and writing it off as we have basically through almost all of history. This is kind of a new thing that we're verbally saying this is not okay. This is a relatively new concept to say predatory behavior towards anyone is not an acceptable thing to do.
It's probably one of the only benefits of social media right now is that a lot more is getting exposed, and a lot of people are able to take videos and photos of things that otherwise were able to be hidden. There's a lot of things that are going on in there that are causing this. I think in most of these cases, they think they're inoculated against repercussions because of the powerful people around them. Diddy, I think, is the greatest example of someone who felt like he created his own nation state with his own laws. And that's what a lot of these people are doing. They're not subjected to anything. I mean, Epstein had his own island. I don't have a law. It's my island. I can do what I want. It's my island. It's my law. And the other thing, too, here, I think is really, really important to keep in mind. And because you use that word, I can't remember the word you used, Tony, wealthy, rich, or no, successful.
Okay.
No, they're not. So they're defining success by materialism. And how many of them are happy? They keep doing this because they're caught up in what they're trying to get these dopamine hits from these abhorrent actions, because that's what they've been taught is actually it. When actually the greatest thing you can actually do is just have a great, healthy conversation with someone. And so they get caught up in this maelstrom of, I got to do this to get more, because they keep seeking this high that is just fleeting from them because they've misdefined how to do it because they got such broken brains.
Yeah. Where does the breaking start? I can understand the psychology of the women who are victimized in this, of being victimized at a very young age, and I can understand how that can lead into the path of how they end up, where they end up, and it's sad and it's heartbreaking. I can understand, but like the victimizers, the ones that are doing the horrible things to these people, where does that start? Where that's another broken brain right there that's thinking that is an acceptable thing to do. That I'm going to guess it doesn't. I'm going to guess it's not something that suddenly, flips at age 35 and you're like, oh shit, well, I'm going to go be a predator. I'm going to guess you've probably always been a predator from a very formative age.
Well, and probably nobody stepped in and said this is not acceptable behavior and stopped it. Doesn't that seem possible?
Yes-ish. It's all accurate. What happens is at a very young age, someone defined for you what success is. Mm-hmm. And if you're defined at a young age, you're in those formative years of 9 to 19, 24, before the prefrontal lobe, and you're told that success is power and control, title and position, and service of self rather than service of others, and you are witnessing these behaviors around you, and you're witnessing behaviors of people with money and power and accolades, and they were telling you, I'm successful, I'm happy, and now you're told that you're supposed to pursue happy, and that this is what happy is, and this is what success is. You then get caught up in that maelstrom of doing that thing, and that's why we start chasing it. It's such an interesting challenge. The studies are really solid on this. The fact that capitalism is the most successful methodology for the progress of our species, and actually getting rid of great wrongs in the world. But then because socialism can always turns dark and bad. In all the experiments that they've done throughout the world. But at the same time, though, there's a lot of excesses that come because of capitalism, because of the power, because of the control. And so that's why regulations seem to fail it a lot. But this is exactly where it starts. It starts with a young age. People are groomed, not groomed in a negative, but just groomed to grow into thinking that this is what success and happiness comes from, power and control. Again, I keep going back to this control thing. It is such part of our species to control. And when control goes excessive, because remember, our brains reward us for a certain amount of control because it allows us to feel safe. But at the same time, control to excess becomes narcissism. And if you are edging anywhere up on that sliding scale of psychopathy, where you start lacking empathy and you objectify a human being, you rationalize your behavior towards others for yourself, and you can rationalize because you're doing it for a greater good. Oh my God, that's where chaos ensues. And so it does come from a younger age. But here's the good part of it too. I've seen many people, and myself included, I thought leadership was a much different thing than it evolved into being throughout my life. And leadership is literally just a life of service and not of self. And I think what a lot of people at an early age get indoctrinated into is that leadership and power and happiness is in service of self, and that's where I think a lot of these important behaviors start growing into.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast.